there were a few different sources I looked at to pull together sort of this list of concepts. But one thing that occurred in several places was this idea of basically two people knowing that the other person isn't having sex with anybody but them is a like fundamental element. Everybody recognizes, like, yeah, that's a key element of marriage.
Right.
And then the reason is like, why does that matter? And I think that one reason it matters is because the emotions associated with having
Right.
sex
Right.
might be threatening, of like, oh, well, now you're like going to leave me. Like our relationship is like, I will be alone if you leave me for somebody else who you're having sex with. I don't want you to have sex with anybody else because I don't want you to leave me because I don't want to be alone. So part of it is we have this pact of you're not allowed to fall in love with anybody else. And the way we limit that
Correct.
is you're not allowed to fool around with anybody else.
Right.
Yeah. But then that's just like level one, right? Like then level two is, well, because we're going to have kids, both people want to know, I don't want to be left with these kids and you run out on me. And so, again, like, you can't go anywhere else because I'm the only one you're allowed to have sex with. So nobody's going to be like, yeah, I guess I'll just like never have sex again so I don't have to raise these kids. People will be like, all right, I guess even though these kids are really obnoxious, I'm going to stick around. It's worth it.
Sure.
You know? And then the third layer, again, is the, like, particularly you take it back pre-DNA tests, like go back to pre-industrial times. It's like, if you want all my stuff, you want to like live in my house and raise these kids here, I'd at least like to know these are my kids. You're not bringing other people's kids into my house to eat my food and stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Do you think all of that makes sense, or like you're laughing at it, but I can't tell if you're laughing because you think it's wrong, or you're like, no, that's true, but it's just funny.
No, and I think it makes sense.
Well, because as I usually, whenever I'm like formulating an idea like this in my head, I normally like put out a test balloon on Reddit, and I'll say, hey Reddit, I have this idea. Do we all agree that the reason sexual exclusivity matters to men is because I want to make sure that like all these kids are my kids?
Right.
And I didn't really get a lot of feedback except one person who was vehemently like, that is not the purpose of marriage or sexual exclusivity. That is ridiculous. And then I had this dialogue with this person, found out it was a woman. So I just stopped. I immediately discounted that entirely. So out of a polling sampling size of 1, I'm like, I think that makes sense.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like there's a different angle there, though, that I'm like, it's like, in my mind, I have this like nagging feeling of like, there's something I'm missing about, like, if you think about it as an anthropological or evolutionary thing, like, why would you come up with this idea of two people are going to get married? And by marriage, we mean, yeah, you're not allowed to have sex with anybody but each other now.
Right.
Why? Like, really, let's devil's advocate that. Why can't we live in a society where, like, yeah, you get married and you have kids and you have a family, but, like, yeah, everybody still has sex with everybody. It doesn't matter.
I mean, from like the biological or whatever perspective of like, I mean, today's day and age, like, I'd like to know, like, I'm having sex with you and not getting STDs. So, like, there's a...
Yeah, I don't think that's, like, a good historic reason, though. I don't think 100 or 500 years ago people were worried so much about, like, transmission of diseases.
Maybe they should have been.
I'm sure they should have been.
Because they're all dead now. So...
that's why. It couldn't be the 500 years.
No, I mean, like, I think there's something, you know, that, like, psychological safety of that commitment. I would maybe at some point say, like, you're likely to have less children if you're not, like, if you're sleeping around, you're going to have, you know, how many, like, especially, you know, 500 years ago, like...
You're trying to reduce the number of children?
I mean, maybe that's, like, biologically, like, or a function.
That is interesting. I got to think about that more, the math on that. Well, but again, and actually, that does make sense both ways. Like, I'm having flashbacks to, like, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves with Kevin Costner. Because I was taking it from the man's perspective of, like, I, the man, in pre-industrial times, whatever. Like, I want to know these kids are mine. I don't want to be feeding other people's kids.
Yeah.
Step one. Just like I'm like economy of resources.
Right.
But think about it the other way too. Like if you're the woman in that scenario, you're like Lady Robin Hood's mom. What was her name? What was Robin Hood's real name? Lancaster? Something like that. I'm going to cut this. This is bad. Anyway, yeah, like if you're in a pre-industrial arena,
Yeah.
the woman also has an interest in the economy of the family resources because she wants to make sure that she and her children are being well taken care of. She can't have her husband having kids all around town that
Right.
now the estate has to be broken up. So both people benefit from this. Like, no. All the kids will be our kids. There will be no kids that are your kids or my kid. Like they're all our
Right.
kid. All of the resources that we're sharing as a family, we're keeping,
Right.
to the team here.
I also think, and I don't know when this became like, when this came into factor, but I mean, there's a respect piece of it too, right? Like it's like I feel like cheating is one of the most disrespectful and
Yeah.
embarrassing things you can do to another person, right? Because from that person's perspective of like, am I not enough? Am I like, is that person, are you more attracted to that person? Are you more, right? Like it's it's like that confirmation, that comfort, that like security of like, you're picking me every day and
Yeah.
not, and so I think there's that piece too of like, it's humiliating
yeah.
to be like, but I don't know when that became a thing, right?
Well, I think there's
like,
two different pieces to what you just said, though. I think part of it is like your own sort of is like self-esteem, but then there's also like your sense of community esteem.
right.